Hello everyone, my name is Honorable Ziwajiran from St. Maria Goreeti Katende. Next to my left is Honorable Bukunira Precious Rachel. Next one is Honorable Namirembe Valeria, and then the last one at the other end is Honorable Chabo Edwin. Thank you.
Hello everyone, so we are here to affirm the motion that states that this House believes that the allocation of debt servicing in the national budget undermines fiscal sustainability and is a compromise to priority sectors. All we expect is the best because we've done enough preparation and we hope that we are going to take peace. Thank you.
House rules. Each speaker has 5 minutes. The first and last minutes are protected. The judge will ring a bell to signal the protected time. The bell will ring continuously after 5 minutes.
This House believes that the allocation of debt servicing on the national budget undermines fiscal sustainability and is a compromise to priority sectors. Well, we are going to start with first explaining the key terms in the motion. I'm going to start with debt servicing, which refers to the process of making regular payments on a loan or borrowed money. These payments typically include interest and principal. And then the national budget is the estimate of the country's income and expenditure. When you talk about fiscal sustainability, we mean the government's ability to sustain its currency, its current spending, tax, and other policies in the long term without risking solvency or default. And then to compromise is to reduce chances for something. Then we talk about the priority sectors, the sectors deemed essential for national development. For example, we're going to talk about the health sector, the education sector, the infrastructure, and any other sectors we could think of. And then in this motion today, we are going to set our parameters as Africa, because if you look at Africa, it has very many developing countries whereby these countries have very many resources and they are facing difficulties with debt servicing. So how does debt servicing work? Two parties agree on the money to be borrowed and the interest and the period of payment. That is, they agree on the money that they are going, maybe the money that is going to be given to the country borrowing, and then the time from the time that's going to use to pay, and then even the percentage of interest maybe per month or quarterly or yearly. And then it's also given a grace period, which is the time they're going to use the money after you start paying. And then we are going to look at how debt servicing looks like. Debt servicing is a fixed cost which must be paid whether a country is in a crisis or not. Meaning that whether a country is having a disaster, whether it is having currency fluctuation or anything, no, there's nothing like, it's not an excuse, debt servicing. They should pay the debt no matter the circumstance. So, according to our motion today, we are saying that allocation of debt servicing on the national budget undermines fiscal sustainability. How? We look at this as the allocation leading to what you can call austerity. Well, austerity means reducing public spending on most needs, including education, health, physical infrastructure, and putting it on paying the debt. When you look at this, you see that very many developing countries in Africa, for example, we can talk about our own country, Uganda, having very many debts, and they are facing a problem in paying these debts. So they decide to put them on the budget, which kind of eats up money that would be used for priority sectors, and it's instead used for paying the debt that they have to pay. And this causes something like underdevelopment in the country, because as I've said, other priority sectors are sectors that are deemed to essential national development. So if they get less investment, meaning that there's going to be also less development in the country. And then, how does debt servicing on the budget create austerity? We said with debt servicing on the budget, governments must guarantee payments every year, even during crisis, meaning that they're going to be having a force of paying the debt, whether they're having problems or not, meaning that they're going to be forced to cut on the money for priority sectors and decide to pay the debt, which is a risk to the economy of the country. That means that it's going to kind of reduce in the fiscal sustainability, because the country's economy is going to be, I should call it hanging in space, because the money is not going to be monitored because since many of it is going to be going with paying the debt and not minding about developing the priority sectors at home. What is the result of this? Government increases the risk of borrowing money to pay existing debt, and this undermines fiscal sustainability because the countries get trapped in borrowing and repaying cycles, losing the ability to control its own budget. What does this mean? We see that with austerity, when a country is having pressure of paying a debt of another country and they do not have money to this, they're going to decide to borrow money from other countries so as to be able to pay that debt. Thank you, Judge. I rest my case.
This House believes that the allocation to debt servicing in national budget undermines fiscal sustainability and is a compromise to priority sectors. So by rebutting the Prime Minister, who talked about the national budget in the resolution, which is talking about talking about a national budget in the resolution, and she's talking about Africa, which is a continent. Can a continent have a national budget? Of course not. Definition of key terms. Allocation is the amount of resources assigned to a particular recipient. As a national budget, you're talking about money. So allocation is the amount of money assigned to a particular recipient. Debt servicing. We agree with the definition of the servicing. National budget. This is a comprehensive financial plan that outlines the government's anticipated revenues of proposed expenditures for our financial year. Undermines. That's an effectiveness of power of something. Fiscal is the government's use of spending and taxation to influence the economy. Sustainability is the ability to maintain a certain process or state for an unlimited time. So fiscal sustainability is the government's ability to maintain its current spending, tax and other policies in the long run threatening its solvency or defaulting on its obligations. So, and remember, debt servicing is also part of the obligations. Compromise. The expedient acceptance of standards that are lower than is desirable. Priority is something that is regarded more important than others. Sectors and area proportionally distinct from others. So priority sectors are the sectors which government considers as important for the development, basic needs of the country and to be given priority over other sectors. And according to www.finance.go.gg, the priority sectors include infrastructure and transport, education, health, and agro-industrialization, etc. And still according to www.finance.go.gg, infrastructure and transport garnered 13.8 trillion shillings in the 2025-2026 financial budget. Education, 5.9 trillion, health, 5.87 trillion, organization, 1.6 trillion, and debt servicing garnered 27.3 trillion, which is 38% of the national budget. And so this leaves the 62% of the national budget, or the money on the national budget, catering for the priority sectors and other minor sectors. And also according to Post News, Uganda's total public debt is 106.2 trillion, which is equivalent to 52.4% of the GDP, exceeding the 50% ceiling, which was set by the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. So what are we in right now? We're seeking in fiscal insustainability, whereby we can see that with 52.4%, the standard ceiling set by the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility is 50%. So how are we going to reduce this so we can get into fiscal sustainability, paying off the debts? How are we going and if we don't pay off the debts, we can see that this is going to lead to reduced economic growth by diverting resources away from productive investments, priority sectors, discouraging both domestic and foreign investment, as lenders may perceive the country as higher risk. This money becomes available for public spending on various sectors that are relevant and development. 2, crowding out the private sector. Can up interest rates which make it more expensive for business to access credit and hindering the ability to invest and expand. And if the business can't expand, this leads to a lot of taxes which are garnered from this business. And if you get a lot of taxes, there is a low development. 3, the stability issues. I debt to GDP ratio in case our country's debt burden is largely relative to the size of its economy, which makes the country's economy slow down, making it struggle to meet the debt obligation, potentially leading to debt crisis. The crisis may have can also consequences including currency devaluation, inflation, negative impact on future generations. High debt levels means that future generations have a greater debt burden of debt repayment, which can limit the access to resources and opportunities that can crush the ability to improve their living standards. So look at a nearby future, look at a far future whereby even the future generations can improve their standards of living. What's the servicing on a budget? We can see serving a budget due to the government side data. The levels are need to make payments on both interest, principal and interest. 2, strategic balance between control and the investment in key sectors. So if we control our debts, then continue investing in the priority sectors. We see consider we are developing. 3, ensure that reduction in domestic borrowing and public expenditure to manage debt. Effect of the stability or the servicing on private sectors. Maintain economic stability. Help maintain service by helping to maintain investor confidence and prevent economic stability is crucial for attracting foreign investment and promoting long-term growth. I rest my case.
This is the High School Crossfire. We'll be back in a minute. This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Resolved. Dear panel, what we get from Team Negative is they are giving us the disadvantages that will occur if debt servicing is not put on the national budget. They come and talk about hindering development. They talk about that when it is on the national budget, future generations can get chance to live. And they also talk about that when it's on the national budget, they will get money to invest in priority sectors. But dear panel, this is what we have to engage on their side. We are not against how we're not against debt servicing. We are against how it is carried out. So dear panel, they come and tell us all of those things, but they fail to understand that when debt servicing is on the national budget, we are going to get problems like austerity, like my first speaker talked about. In this, we mean that when it is on the national budget, there is a less percentage to be spent on priority sectors, simply because much of the money may go into debt servicing because we cannot go against global reality, problems like devaluation of money. So if developing countries, most especially in Africa, face devaluation of money, you realize that there is going to be a lot of burden on them to use a lot of money to pay this. And if debt servicing is on the national budget, then we are going to have problems with that, since a lot of money will be used to cater for debt servicing, since it is a fixed cost regardless of the economic conditions. So dear panel, we come as Team Affirmative and present to you our alternative that could be used in developing countries as use of natural resources. In this, we are trying to show you that if countries in Africa resort to this, they can be in position to have they are going to have collateral security. When you are going in to get a loan, you have to have a backup for what you have to have a backup where the money will come from. So if we use natural resources, then they are going to be in position to have African countries are going to be in position to have a collateral security. 2, when we use this method, the African countries are going to be in position to have a source where they are going to be taking the money to pay back their debt. But when it is on the national budget, priority sectors are at a compromise, because the money that would be used to make these sectors better is used in debt servicing. So inductively, there is highly instability of physical pressure. How? Since debt servicing is a fixed cost, in many times you may find that governments still must service the debt even when the revenues fall. So this increases the risk of borrowing more and more just to pay the existing debt. The impact of this undermines physical sustainability of the country, trapping it in borrowing and repaying of debts all the time. So we bring to you a case study of Angola. Angola is a country that resorted to using resources. It was in position to make an oil site where they get oil from. They got the loan from China. This is got from www.elibrary.com. So in this, they were in position to get that money, and then they used a direct servicing whereby they got the product and then used it directly to pay China the debt, and they were in position to go and complete their debt. This enabled them get a source of revenue and also be in position to pay their debt. So between 2018, I just rest my case. Thank you.
This House believes that allocation to debt servicing in the national budget undermines fiscal sustainability and is a compromise to priority sectors. I want to be clear today. Ladies and gentlemen, we as the negators clearly say that debt servicing does not undermine, but actually debt servicing strengthens fiscal sustainability and also develops other priority sectors. What are the priority sectors we as the negators we're talking about? We're talking about sectors like agriculture, agro-industry, infrastructure, education, health, and transport. But now, how does the debt servicing do this? But first of all, the team second government member says that there will be less percentage to be spent in other priority sectors. But when we can, but let me tell you how debt servicing instead increases these percentages. According to www.statistics.ug.com, 11.33 trillion is spent on the national budget for interest payments, and debt servicing maintains credit worthiness. Debt servicing helps us gain trust with lenders and credit agencies. This means this will keep us accessing future funding at lower interest rates. And if the lower interest rates are
if the interest rates are lowered, we can have more money to be spending on these other sectors, which I'm talking about: education, infrastructure, and industry. And well, let me first remind our government, on that, according to the debt, 70% of the debt is used in investing in other priority sectors. That means the debt is not wasted. And then the other percent, then 38% of the budget, 38% of the budget is using paying debts. And according to the recent budget of 72.3 trillion, 27% was spent on paying budgets. On paying budgets. But now if we continue paying, if we continue carrying out debt servicing, all these interest rates will reduce, and hence targeting the country's economy to a surplus. And then they came and say that the debt servicing is that they are going to use resources, yet they are still in debt. Yet that debt is still accumulating. How are they going to use these resources, yet the debt is still accumulating? They still refuse to tell us that. How will that be? When we carry out debt servicing, we can see that this will boost investor confidence. A strong record of Uganda in debt payment makes Uganda more attractive to foreign investors, encouraging investment that drives long-term growth. These I'm talking about chances of investment. Uganda will now have the chance to get international grants, in funds, and then the sectors which we are talking about will be prioritized, and education, infrastructure, agro-industry, and agriculture will be managed. And then I want to tell them how debt servicing strengthens fiscal sustainability. In order to sustain fiscal sustainability, there must be normalizing in the GDP. GDP is gross domestic product. And then Uganda currently has a GDP of 54%. And for a stronger fiscal sustainability, it's supposed to be about 50% or less. Debt servicing allows future budget flexibility. Reducing debts now makes the future payments of freeing up funds for development later. Now we can see that if the interest rates in check, like let me say, stable debt management helps prevent skyrocketing of domestic interest rates, which would otherwise crowd out private sector's investment. If the interest rates are kept increasing, this will just invite deficits in the national budget. So now if we continue having a good record of us reducing on our debts, and now our money lenders can reduce on the interest rates which they give us for those loans, now we can have a time where we now can budget enough money for our expenditures. Let me just make case.
This is the High School Crossfire. We'll be back in a minute. This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Resolved. I begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, first of all, Team Goreeti fails to understand that we are not against paying the debt. What does this mean? This means that all the benefits of paying the debt are then accrued to us. Their second speakers come and left a question for us that we have not told them how we are going to use money from the resources to pay the debt. But the second speaker from Team Affirmative came and told you that we are going to be using natural resources as leverages, earning us collateral security. What is collateral security? Collateral security is when you're going to give in something so that they can give you that debt, so that you can have some sort of protection, thus earning credibility. What is the outcome of this? Is that when we have collateral security, we have trust. These people trust us. Like, we let them come, they use our natural resources, we pay that debt while still keeping more debts, more credibility coming in on our side, and then PI accepted.
Are natural resources suitable for dealing with these debts? Are they enough for collateral security in paying these debts?
Why not? Why not? You speak about credibility. Yes, we accept credibility, but we have showed how natural resources are going to be used to pay debt. And then, if you're telling me that credibility is going to be coming at the cost of squeezing the local people, because we have seen that when a country faces a problem of austerity due to debt servicing being on the national budget, people, like, the country is forced to cut expenditures on priority sectors. So if you're telling me they're going to be earning credibility by increasing taxes and stopping spending on two things like hospitals, education, and all those other priority sectors, then I don't know what we're actually doing in this particular case. So you come and give us some weird sort of estimations that I don't understand. But what you should understand, debt negotiations and
debt servicing varies for different countries. I don't know what source of information you're using, what source of country you're using. So it's not the same for each and every other country. You have to understand that in this particular case, we want to pay that debt, but how is this debt being paid? We want to use natural resources, use them, negotiate with these people. We've given here a case study of Angola with China. Angola let China take some of its resources, take some of its oil, while actually paying the debt in the long run. We have showed you that austerity comes about through things like devaluation of money and global crises. So if we're saying that we put the debt servicing on the national budget, take a look at COVID-19 where the economy is dropped. Did natural resources stop existing? They did not stop existing. And then if debt servicing is on the national budget, at such a particular time when a country faces a crisis, they are going to have to stop spending more money onto the priority sectors and then using them to invest into things such as repaying the debt. But when we focus on using natural resources to actually pay the debt, we are helping purge austerity. Since like these natural resources are there, we are getting into negotiations with these different people who have lent us the debt. They are coming, they are accessing the natural resource, while we are still keeping their trust and credibility on the long run. Your credibility comes about by sacrificing the people, things like increasing taxes and then torturing and then leading to the deterioration of these priority sectors. Whereas on our side, we show that if we use natural resources as an alternative, we still pay the debt, we still earn the trust, and we still get the benefits that are accrued from the debt, since obviously we get the debt, we build the roads, we invest into education, and then still we use our natural resources. There are lots of... I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, panel, for this opportunity given once again. My name is Philo from Katikamu Sda Secondary School. Tonight, this House believes that the allocation of debt servicing in the national budget undermines fiscal sustainability and is a compromise to priority services sectors. Therefore, our characterization of the word undermine is actually to lessen effectiveness and ability or power of something. Panel, what do we see in this kind of debate tonight? We actually see the team government coming on stage to tell us how they think this is actually undermining. Therefore, I come on stage to actually tell you how it's strengthening. First of all, I want to bring to your table that actually one of the things that is a key thing to what we call fiscal sustainability is one of them. For us to achieve fiscal sustainability, we have to have debt to GDP ratio should be stable or declining. Therefore, if we have it stable or declining, as per now, as we stand as a country, as Uganda, we see that it's 54%. Therefore, it is high. For it to decline to around 50 or below 50, we get a chance to actually experience better things as a country and get better services. Pano, what do we also see in the other side of the house? They come and tell us that this actually undermines by reducing a public service like education. We think that actually by doing this, by actually allocating some of the funds to paying this debt servicing, it helps us to come up to strengthen things like education, health sectors, and then also strengthen this money we can allocate also to strengthen things like agriculture industry, whereby if we allocate money in agriculture industry, we get more money which we can get as the taxes and pay back these debt services. Now, what do we also get? They come and talk about problems like austerity, which they say that debt servicing should not be put at the national budget. They say that they should use the natural resources panel. Natural resources include things like oil and so on, which need extraction. Therefore, we need still money to allocate to such things for us to extract the resources, so that at the end of the day, we transport these resources, we get the money and pay the debts. So therefore, they do not actually show us the thing of collateral security, where they think that they are going to use these resources. How are they going to extract the resources without the money if we do not put this money in the budget? Therefore, to our side, we think that actually allocating this debt servicing helps us to actually strengthen, because number one, if we strengthen it, we get the ability like trust from these other international organizations. If we gain trust from them through paying in a strategic way, we get the chance to get better actually loans, and at a certain point, they even give us grants. If we get grants from them, we actually help ourselves to solve problems like health, education, and then agricultural sector. Also, panel, they come and talk about oil being extracted from Angola and China and so on. But panel, I want to tell you to the house tonight that I'm sure the oil that was extracted from Angola money was used. But they come and talk about all this extraction without showing us how they're going to strategize the kind of using of money and so on. Therefore, how are they going to use if we do not put it in the budget? Therefore, at this kind of thing, we think that we still have to pay these debts. If we pay that debts, then we have to get the opportunity to get the money to allocate in such things. Pano, they also tell us that higher instability of economic growth. If we do not pay that debt, then we shall not have economic growth. We shall not have a stable economy. They forget in this debate that we already have the outstanding debt in Uganda, which is talking about 27 trillion, which we have to pay. Now, if we resort to resources, how shall we pay that debt without actually allocating money into this? Our clash points tonight, number one, talk about debt payment. We talk about health sector, a transport sector, agro industry. When in the debate, they said that it's actually risky to put this kind of thing they tell us that it's risky, but for us we say it's not risky because number one, we shall be able to achieve the things that I've given you. They say that we first pay that debt, but we say let's pay that debt as well as in looking at things like health, looking at things like education, looking at things like industrial agriculture. Therefore, House, I think we win this kind of resolution tonight because we think this kind of argument actually stands in our case tonight. I beg to rest my case.
This is the High School Crossfire. We'll be back in a minute. This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Good evening, Speaker.
My check one.
Can debt servicing improve fiscal sustainability?
Pardon?
Can debt servicing improve fiscal sustainability?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Is the debt used for investing in non-priority sectors?
Yes. And we're not against that.
Can you bite a hand that feeds you?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Can other priority sectors survive without debt servicing?
Pardon?
Can other priority sectors survive without debt servicing?
Of course, other priority sectors.
Thank you so much. The priority sectors benefit from debt servicing.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Can debt servicing uphold trust by
We are
financial
not
institutions
against
in
debt
Uganda?
servicing. We have to pay the debts that we get.
Can debt servicing uphold trust by financial institutions in Uganda?
Of course, but we are not against that. We are only against
Is
debt
Uganda's gross
servicing being in the
domestic
national
product
budget.
favorable for
Thank
fiscal
you.
sustainability as our aim of today's debate?
Pardon?
Is Uganda's GDP favorable, the gross domestic product favorable for fiscal sustainability, which is today's aim of this debate?
But Uganda is having this
Thank
debt
you.
servicing on the national
Is it
budget.
27 trillion that was used for debt servicing?
Pardon?
What percentage was used for debt servicing?
I'm not
You're not
that's not the
aware.
question.
Can the
It's like-
resources get done or extinct?
Yes?
Can resources get done or extinct?
Yes, of course.
Thank you so much. Judges, take note.
But
Are the
then,
resources
question,
suitable for debt
let's not
servicing?
okay?
Are the
Sources
resources
are meant to
suitable
be
for debt
used, not
servicing?
preserved. Thank you. Sources are meant to be used, not preserved.
Can you invest in a country with debts?
Yes, of course, and this is what Uganda
Thank
is.
you so much. Have the natural resources reduced?
Of course.
Thank you so much. They have reduced. Judges, take note. Is it better to pay debts with the profits gained from natural resources?
Pardon?
Is it better to pay debts with profits gained from natural resources?
Yes,
Or
yes.
pay
And we
debts with
also know
natural
this. We are
resources?
suffering because of this, and we all live examples of this.
Thank you for your greenness. Do you believe a bird in hand is worth two in the bush?
Yes, of
Thank you
course.
so much. Which lender is going to give you trillions of money using your collateral security?
But if I
As
ever
things
seek
such as
finance, I'll
minerals,
get a help.
extract oil that needs to be extracted without the money for debt
Pardon?
servicing. Thank you so much. You can take your seat. Judge, this debate was about allocation of debt service to debt servicing in the national budget. And today's debate was concerning us to prove whether it is a compromise to priority sectors or not, or if it undermines fiscal sustainability or not. Now, as team negative, we come here and show them that this debt servicing is going to actually improve fiscal sustainability. How? Major points of fiscal sustainability is normalizing the GDP. What is the GDP? The gross domestic product. It needs to be normalized, and by normalizing it, how are we going to normalize it? By actually clearing this debt which is causing a threat to it. What is the debt used for investing? Is the debt used for investing in non-priority sectors? We can actually say that 70% of the debt that is gotten is going to actually be used for sponsoring and investing in the priority sectors, which are education, infrastructure, transport, health, and all other sectors. They come and speak of using natural resources for paying their debts, but natural resources can get extinct. Natural resources are, when you look at Uganda's natural resources, they're not enough to sustain collateral security. And we prefer a world whereby we are going to actually invest in natural resources to get more than actually use the natural resources, the little we are remaining with as Uganda. We asked them, do you believe a bird in hand is worth two in the bush? Do you believe that these investors, the minerals that are not yet extracted, the minerals that are not yet gotten, they are going to actually believe in this for you to be given trillions of money? We asked them, have the natural resources reduced. Judge, these national resources have been reduced. Why? Because there has been over exploitation of these resources. Last time, can you invest in a country with debts? Earlier on, we showed that the importance of debt servicing. A country can get trust, and this trust is going to help us gain lower interest rates. And actually, by gaining lower interest rates, we are going to have this money that would have been paid for interest being sponsored in the priority sectors. What are we trying to show to you, Judge, today? We are trying to show that debt servicing, the aim of debt servicing is actually to normalize our GDP, which is the gross domestic product, and fiscal sustainability, hence strengthening our country's fiscal sustainability and development. Thank you so much.
Resolved. This House believes that allocation of debt servicing on the national budget undermines fiscal sustainability and compromises priority sectors. So I'm going to be asking you open-ended questions, and I'll give you suitable time. And when I ask a closed-ended question, I also give you the required time, or time that fits into the answer that might require. So first question is here. Are Uganda's priority sectors better than those of Angola?
Pardon?
Are Uganda's priority sectors better than those of Angola? You're not informed. Well, is it better? Is Uganda anywhere in clearing its debt?
It is somewhere because of debt servicing.
You say yes or no, is it there?
It is somewhere because of debt servicing.
Well, you're not informed. We have a lot of burden. And how long has it taken? How long, are you aware of how long it has taken to clear the debt to this extent?
Rome wasn't built in one day. Rome wasn't built in one day.
Are you aware of how long? You say yes or no?
Developed countries started with
developed
countries started with a step to reach the
how does putting money on the national budget better priority sectors?
Over 1,000 miles.
How does putting money on the national budget better priority sectors?
It's not actually help us gain interest rates and trust, whereby we are going to have these low interest rates, and the money is in the low interest rates. It's going to be used for providing for the priority sectors.
Are you aware that we are not against clearing debts?
Pardon?
Are you aware that we are not against clearing debts?
It will affect the GDP.
And
actually here, today's debate and today's aim of the debate is to attain physical
sustainability. This is a very simple question. It's close-ended. Sorry. Would you give an ill person's medical fee to their creditor just to get a loan again?
Pardon?
Would you give an ill person's medical fee to their creditor just to get the loan again?
That's why we have debt servicing.
Oh, debate servicing. Are you aware the budget is an estimate?
Pardon?
Are you aware the budget is an estimate?
And so it is applied.
Thank you so much. Then are you aware that any sort of interruptions can come along and the estimate might not be as accurate?
When you use natural resources,
are you aware it cannot be accurate at times because of shortcomings?
When you deal it with debate servicing, time is done. Thank you so much.
These people are failing to understand. First thing, we are not against debt. What we are against is the way they are clearing their debt. They are using the case study of Uganda. Uganda is already badly off, yet it is using debt servicing on the national budget. So what are they supporting? They are giving us an example of something that is suffering from the very thing that they are debating. But then we do not go against debt, right? We actually support debt because debt is an asset that can indeed help to build the different priority sectors. But then when it comes to clearance of that debt, it is where we differ. What happens in our side of the house is that for us, we are not going to pick a chunk from the national budget, okay? So we are not going in any way to compromise the priority sectors. But then don't forget this. We are obviously going to clear the debt using resources like oil, crude oil, and maybe some other renewable resources that can obviously sustain us till we stabilize. So when you ask us a question that can resources get exhausted, we do accept resources can get exhausted. Thank you. But then by the time they are exhausted, or even without them exhausting, we can be able to stabilize our economy and clear our debt, securing the credibility in the end, which is literally hitting two birds with one stone. Doing what you're saying, the earning of credibility as we have cleared our debt promptly, and on the other end, avoiding the compromise of priority sectors. So I asked him, would you give an ill person's medical fee to their creditor just to get a loan again? I did not get the clear answer the fourth speaker gave us, because it was a very clear question which either required a yes or no. But according to this, there is no way you are obviously going to do that. First thing, you are already demanding. What do I mean? I mean that either way, you are lacking because you are ill. You need medical assistance. So in either way, you will need more economy, right? But then because of, even after giving you some grace, you might not be able to sustain yourself because the time they've given you is not enough, or you require another debt that might not even be necessary even after this small assistance.
Yeah, thank you so much for this debate. I'll start with maybe a few points of correction and we shall be good to go. One, In this debate, I really want to appreciate the first speaker, affirmative 1, and negative 4. Mostly negative 4 for your reply speech, but not for your cross-examination and not for the way you answer questions. Okay, even if time is out, you don't need to tell them, time is out. No. If it's time out, just take your leave and take your seat. Okay? Second to that, team affirmative. If a resolution is having a word like national, and then you set your parameters to do with Africa, then you need to make it clear to the judges that now for you are taking Africa as a whole, so now you will take the word national as part of a continent. But now if the word is national, most cases the definition of national is restricted. So now if you now say national budget and then you open the parameters to Africa, it is not wrong, but then you need to be justifiable now to prove to the judges why you are now interpreting national to the continental scale. Next up to that, this was not a resolution that was looking at one team to debate advantages of debt servicing, another to debate disadvantages of debt servicing. Team negative. Team affirmative was not against debt servicing. And that's why you see when all the speakers tell you, we are not against debt servicing. This is it. The resolution just wanted you to debate debt servicing as per budget allocation. So, how efficient is debt servicing as per budget allocation towards fiscal sustainability and not compromise to priority sector? For them, they were just meant to debate how allocation or how debt servicing through allocation to the national budget undermines fiscal sustainability and compromise to the priority sector. So it was not wrong for you to give what we shall see in case we don't service the debts, and it was also not wrong for you to give what we shall see in case the debt are serviced, but relate it to how efficient is it going to be if we are debt servicing through allocation to the national budget. So now all your arguments that you give, it is as though you are saying this people are against debt servicing and for you in support of debt servicing. Even if you talk about issues to do with the GDP that you say, for example, if we are to have debt servicing, the GDP must be like this. At the end of the day, that is not what it entirely wanted you to do. It just wanted you to tell us how efficient is the debt service going to be towards fiscal sustainability and prioritizing there and towards the priority sectors through the national allocation. So at the end of the day, you left out the national budget allocation and you now just went to advantages of debt servicing and what we shall have as disadvantages if the debts are not serviced. 2, this was a resolution that was actually not even policy value, that even wanted you to just give us what are we having in place, not telling us that if we don't do this, we shall do this. If we are already seeing what we are having. For example, if even parameters are open to Africa, despite also one team comes up and talks about Uganda, what we are having, the other side is applicable. That is why you see, even to team affirmative, on another day you could not even give an alternative. But even when you give and team affirmative goes on with the alternative they have, you cannot question an alternative, mainly in the fourth speech, when you bring in arguments of extinction in your cross-examination. Because for them, if you look at their alternative, it came through in the other subsequent speeches. Because it was a very good alternative, it was a very good question of asking them. The biggest thing you could have to contest is the efficiency of the alternative they have. So it was a very good question to come up with the issue of extinction. But why should it come as a question in the fourth speech? But even you see, they are telling you that, you see, even these natural resources are there to be used, not to be preserved. So now you just now had from the second speeches mainly, now make a comparison between the natural resources they are talking about in debt servicing vis-a-vis the national budget allocation in debt servicing. So now the question comes, did you listen to the alternative they provided? So literally that's where I base my judgment from. Start, I give both of you 16. Started, I give you 28, I give you 26. Content, I give you 26, I give you 27. You had better content. But also, another thing I want to advise, Draw a causal link between the content you have. So how relevant is the content as per the budget allocation you're talking about in bringing about the issue of debt servicing? Making a total of 70 for team affirmative and a total of 69 for team negative. So according to me, it is a win for team affirmative. Thank you so much.
All right. For me, I want to say this was a good debate, which I really think could have been a lot much more better. In that, what I mean is a lot of things could have been talked about and a lot of things could have been discussed. A lot of engagement could have been done, better rebuttals could have been formed. But nonetheless, we have to judge you based on what you have submitted. So I'll not provide the extra alternatives that Judge Solomon has provided. Basically, I'll go into the case structure and provide my judgment immediately. The case from the affirmative team is that we are not against debt servicing, but rather we are against the allocation of debt servicing on the national budget. Their claim in the debate is that if we invest or if we do debt servicing as an allocation on the national budget, we end up limiting the amount of money we have on the national budget to invest within our priority sectors. They define priority sectors as sectors that are very critical to the development of these nations. And then they go on to tell us that these are sectors that are actually proximate to our development and for the welfare of the citizens. They identify infrastructure, they identify education, health, and then they tell us that we can invest in these sectors and earn money. Now, from first speech, she tells us that if we limit the amount of money we invest in these priority sectors, that means we limit the amount of revenue that we earn as a country. That means we also limit the amount of investment we can make in the next budget if we have limited revenue. So they go on to impact, this was now in their second speech, that if now we have limited money to service the debt, that means that we may not even be able to pay the what? To pay the debt. So we are opting for something like natural resources and we are having direct debt servicing instead of allocation in the national budget. Now, what they established in the second speech is something like debt servicing is like a fixed cost that we have to incur, whether we have earned the revenue to pay that debt or not, whether we have paid the debt or we have not paid the debt. So they tell us that it is better for us to identify a specific natural resource that we can now use to directly service that debt without us having to allocate money that we have earned on the national budget to service this specific debt. That was the affirmative case. The negative case was that, no, we need to allocate this money on the national budget so that we are able to pay up this money. They delve so much into the advantage that we get from paying this money, and they tell us that now there are two things we gain from paying this money based on our national budget. One, we gain credibility, but then two, we also gain trust. What this means is that if we are able to pay this debt, if we are able to do this debt servicing using our national budget, we are able to buy into the trust and credibility of our loaners, in that they will give us lower interest rates in case we get to go to borrow more debts from these people. And we think that we can use the money we have gotten from these debts at lower interest rates to then invest within the priority sectors. Very good strategies. Now, who wins on the clashes? So let us do research and let us use our research. Let us be very clear with the research. You do not come and tell us that now the GDP is 54%. Really? So let us do research. I understand that some of these things are a bit technical, but the GDP to debt ratio, GDP, this is not something that are confusing us. Why should you quote statistics from a certain website in China and yet you're talking about the Uganda national budget? Anything. So next time, I think if you could make a point clear and build on it at your pace, you could make much more sense than just saying a lot of claims. Because at the end of the day, we need arguments that we can understand. In totality, I give the negative team a 65, I give the affirmative team a 67. So according to me, the debate goes to the affirmative team.
Thank you very much for this very informative round of debate. I will not differ very much from the previous judges who have given feedback and remarks. So for that matter, I will only urge team negative in this case to take very, very keen attention to the arguments being put forth by Team Affirmative, because at the end of the day, very simple, can I call them actions or remarks or responses, make the difference between who takes a debate and who wins. So at the end of the day, we really see that a team that listens to the submission of the opposite team, a team that is able to interpret the resolution and carry out the burden that is required by that side, is a team that is going to emerge victor. In this case, we need a team that is able to show us that the allocation in the national budget to debt financing is really going to undermine fiscal sustainability and compromise priority sectors. To that effect, we need, if we to boil it down, we need to see how advantageous this allocation is or how disadvantageous this allocation is. But as per your submission, this is what we get. So from Team Negative, we just see you arguing that debt financing has disadvantages and so on and so forth, which are very, very good arguments. But at the end of the day, how well have you tackled the arguments and alternatives being given by Team Affirmative? We have to keep in mind the fact that the burden of Team Negative is the burden of refutal. But at the end of the day, we really see that Team Negative in this case does not substantially, can I say, fulfill the said burden in this debate. So it is upon that we see that Team Affirmative is able to carry the burden of proof. They're able to show us that in their version of events, debt financing is disadvantageous and so on and so forth. And they're able to draw us a causal link between the disadvantages of debt financing and how it's going to compromise fiscal sustainability and priority sectors. For that matter, my marks were as follows. Content, I give Team Affirmative 25, Team Negative 24, 15 for style for Team Affirmative, 14 for style for Team Negative, 25 for strategy, 24 for strategy for Team Negative. Totality, I give Team Affirmative 65, Team Negative 62. It's therefore a unanimous decision that Team Affirmative wins this debate.